tell me. Dorothy, you're good as well?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, this time we'll call our Town of Windermere, August 7th, 2025 budget workshop meeting to order at 6 p.m. We've got full forum this evening. Councilman Williams will be a few minutes late, but he will be joining us during the presentation. Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our open forum. Hopefully, we have any public comment. At this
Nobody.
time. See none. The town manager, Robert Schmidt, will give us our fiscal year 2025-26 budget presentation. And then after that, we'll move on to our action items.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Master Stone. I think most of us had the summer off, but it's good to see you guys back and the swing things. Again, it's the 25-26 fiscal year draft budget. Like every year, our purpose and intent is to preserve the level of service and quality of life that the town residents and our customers are accustomed to, all while maintaining the town's financial viability. How do we get there? Preserve investments and revenue, control spending, better planning, state and federal appropriations, and federal grants. Now, when you take a look at the revenue sheets that Tara and I and Teresa worked off, it pretty much started off as in 2000, I would say 11. Your best predictor of the future is looking at the past. A lot of town managers, a lot of other governments, they decide a CPI increase on each and everything. We have to take a look and see what's going to be impacted by, what's going on. Communication service tax typically was going down about 10 years ago. Now it's going up because everything's bundling. Everybody's going into utilizing Wi-Fi for their streaming services, their cell phone services, and of course, with gas tax, that's going to continue to go down with more gas efficient vehicles. So this is a breakdown of where we are from 08, 09, all the way to 25, 26. I did speak to a couple council members this afternoon, and we did see an increase in 11, 12. I took a look at that, and the reason for that was for the fire assessment. That was increasing, it increased considerably, and that's when we signed a new contract. So that's why we had to go to 3.7896. Then it dropped back to 3.25, and the reason for that is because we created the fire assessment. And you're seeing a lot of other municipalities doing that right now because of what is the unknown as far as the property tax reform. So we dropped it back to 3.25, and then you saw an increase in 2018, 2019 to 3.7425, where we're at today. And the reason for that increase is because we allocated certain funds to certain things. Potable water studies, 400,000 for streets and roads, 100,000 for sidewalks, 25,000 for parks and recreation. So we created a CIP pretty much over that forward time period to make sure that we had funds that were allocated for certain things. So when people ask, okay, why did you increase the millage rate from 3.25 to 3.7425? It was specifically allocated for those reasons. And we've kept to that in every single budget since then. And you can see the jump from 24-25 and the 3.7425 that we had as last year. We generated about $3.662 million. The increase that you see as far as the revenue for the 4.373 million, the majority of that is because of the annexation of Shambhala. A lot of people, when they take a look at that, they're like, oh wow, you just completely increased a bunch of property values, but what they forget about is the annexation of Shambhala, and that generated about $675,000 in additional value to the town of Windermere. And here you see again, the average revenues that we see here. Again, we've had estancia developed, we've had annexations, and of course, with redevelopment, our property tax revenue has gone. Here's a comparison to what we have with other municipalities in Orange County. You can see that we're at the lowest. It is a great feather to have in your cap, but again, when you try to ask the feds and the state for money, they always ask you, what are you doing to try to generate more revenues? The only way we'd be able to do that, because we don't have a diversified tax base really, right? The property block for commercial and residential, the only thing that we could do would be increase the millage rate. And nobody wants to hear that, so we try to utilize as much as we can with state federal appropriations. Most recently, I think actually tonight, I think Winter Garden is going to be improving their potential for fire and maybe police assessments that they can use in case the property tax reform comes to fruition. So
I think Edge was gonna do the same, Robert.
What's that?
I think Edge was gonna do the same.
I mean, we have the fire protection right now. I want to see how it kind of pans out for police, because I don't think. I'm optimistic that it's not going to go forward, based on a lot of the research that we've done already. And the tax revenue sources that they're looking to pull from is all economic based. You know, sports betting, you know, taxes, or, the sales tax. You know, if something happens like in 2008. How are we gonna fund police, fire, and everything other, all the other services that we own? You just can't, because it's not police, not property. Yeah, so it's been part of tally that. You can see a lot of other municipalities, they have the stormwater assessment, solid waste is billed, the police and fire as well. But we are the lowest in Orange County, we maintain that. The Popka, they're not too far behind us or ahead of us. The reason that they're able to keep their tax rates so low is because they have an enterprise fund. They have utilities and other areas to generate the revenues. So they're able to offset that with their utility funds to offset the general fund. So again, the 2025 estimated taxable value, we pretty much increased from a little over 1 billion to 1.225 or 226 billion. So again, with the annexation, that's why you saw that big jump. So the millage rates that we're gonna ask for you to consider tonight, there's basically only one. I'll explain why. So the millage rate that we're looking for tonight, we have to be everybody voting for a yes, would be the 3.7425. Again, but for the annexation of Shonda, you know, we would probably be looking at just right over not the minimum millage rate, but maintaining the existing for this fiscal year. We'd be looking at maybe a gain of about 125,000, but because we annexed in Shonda, it's looking more significant than that. So we need everybody to vote aye in favor of the maintaining the existing millage rate, which is coming out to be the maximum millage rate that we're all allowed to pass tonight. And with the estimated revenues, again, we look at the past, we look at the future, and I'll go through some of the major tax revenues that we have. The Florida Department of Revenue, they have been getting a little bit better on when they're doing their projections. Typically, we work on the budget starting in May. They typically don't have their estimates out until late July, mid-August. The two that they actually released, I think, was revenue sharing and the asset sales tax. We're estimating lower than the DOR. So again, we're being conservative. But I think we're off by about maybe 30,000 in half-cent sales tax and about 20,000 in revenue share. Again, with the uncertainty of what's going on in Tallahassee, I'd rather be lower than possible.
Here's your.
As you see, local gas tax, it's pretty much like a roller coaster. We do anticipate that going down, but that is another revenue source that they're looking at for the property tax reform of either creating additional local option gas taxes or I believe a mileage fee. They're looking at pretty much spitballing everything when it comes to not only the residents that live here, but the tourists that come into Orange County, into the state for offsetting the property taxes. Utility tax, again, that is going up. Same with the water, gas. Communications, again, you saw it starting to trend a little bit down. I think this was in 2016, 2017. But again, the trajectory is always going up. This is also a tax that has always been a focal point of the lobbyists and state legislators, either looking to eliminate it or to reduce it. The same thing with the half-cent sales tax. They keep looking at trying to reduce that rate. Again, taking away the revenues that we need in order to operate is just going to get worse and worse in case these things do get passed in future bills. Building permits, again, with Estancia and after 500 block, I don't see us increasing a lot of development in the town. It's mostly going to be redevelopment. So we did see a huge decrease from after Estancia was constructed. We get 20% and PDCS gets 80% of the revenues. So that'll pretty much wash whatever's in revenues. We'll get 20% of that, and then you'll see the offset in development services. Again, franchise fee for Duke. Half-cent sales tax. They are estimating, the DOR is estimating us to go pretty much a little over 600,000. But I'd rather again be careful, especially with all the tax holidays that are being passed nowadays. I think right now with the school tax holidays, pretty much all of the month of August. So I'd rather be on the safe side. So when I come back here in April, I'm not asking you guys to cut things or cut funding for something or a project, due to the fact that we don't have enough revenue to offset that. So again, with all the estimates of revenues, we're looking at coming in about close to about $17 million. And again, we did receive two appropriations that are new this year. $645,500 for the North Water Design Phase, and then $666,500 for the South Water Phase for water design. But the balance over here with 15 or 1.5 million for Windermere Road in Maine, 1 million for the state appropriation for the multimodal path, the 3 million for the Central Water Phase, and then another 760 for the multimodal path. We're still working through those projects. So the ARPA funding, we had to have it committed by December 31st of last year, and those monies are committed. It's doing the match for the potable water and also for West Second Avenue. Again, the federal appropriations, the SRC, that's going to the multimodal path. Rent, depending upon when we can do town hall, might drop a little bit, but again, you're talking $40,000. It's dropping the bucket when you're talking about a $16.8 million budget. And again, we continue to look at grants and state appropriations. So again, the future fear that I have is the property tax. We've had meetings with state legislators, local leaders, trying to figure out what would happen and what their plan is. It's still an unknown at this point. So right now they're talking about it being on the ballot in 2026. So it would have to be a constitutional amendment. And my view is how it's worded. You know, like property taxes, save you a bunch of money, you're gonna pass it. What that'll look like is a 10-year wean down off the property taxes. And it's gonna be about finding another revenue source or assessments or whatever they're going to allow us to do to make sure that we're still taking care of the roads, police, fire, pretty much everything that we pay for in this budget right now. Where are we gonna get those supplemental funds? You know, the ancillary taxes are not gonna cover that, especially when you're mostly residential. You know, commercial, you know, that's not gonna fall under a homestead or the property tax reform, only residential. Now we're 95% residential, so that's gonna hit us hard. Same thing with Oakland too. So they have the same fears that we do. If this does get passed, how are we gonna survive? So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that is a fear that I have over the next couple of years. So some of the expenditure highlights that I have in the expenditure portion. Does anybody have any questions about the revenue portion? For expenditures, again, with the fire service agreement, we have at 875. As we did at the 1819 commitment, we have 25,000 that goes to Parks and Recreation CIP. The total was Central, North, and South potable water design, and then the central phase of the construction project. The Ward Trail and the pedestrian bridge, that is in the budget. That came in over what we anticipated by a tune of about 1.5. So $1.5 million. I can tell you right now, if we do not keep the millage rate exactly as it is right now, we're gonna have to kill that project. So when you see the balance that we have, the delta between $600,000 and $700,000, I'm gonna have to use pretty much all of that to offset the cost of those projects. And the reason isn't that we, you know, weren't planning on it, or budgeting for it. Remember, these have been in since ballot Demings was announced. So the costs have escalated tremendously, and we're probably gonna have to maybe lose the old main project in case that project gets accelerated, because it has to be done by September of next year. So that old dirt main project that's gonna go from West Second to the canal, I think that's about $543,000.
$543,000.
So I can tack that on to the 6. and get me to 1.1. And then whatever's left over in October, I'll be able to pay the outstanding balances. So we're working through that, but for us keeping the millage rate the same, there's no way I can afford that project. So I just want to make that clear. We see the reserves and the amount that we have. You know, because of the charter that we have, I can't just go out and pick. You know, it would need a whole vote of the entire town for me to take a loan out that is equal to or more than 12.5% of our overall budget. Our typical budget is usually between $8 and $10 million. It's not 16 point. 100,000 for the sidewalk repairs, West Second Avenue potable and stormwater improvements, Bessie, Butler, Windermere Road, Main Street, and then again with the Old Dirt Main paving project. That one might have to be put on hold depending upon where we're at with the board trail. Legislative budget. There's two major big differences from last year to this year. Number one is the legal fees are going to go down. The reason for that is because the trials in September for the boathouses. I don't see that being pushed any further. We've actually objected to them asking for a continuance of them. So we want to have our summary judgment hearings in September and also the trial in September, so we know where we're going to be the next fiscal year. In addition to that, remember that we moved the Windermere Wine and Dine over to Western Orange Chamber of Commerce. So the monies that were agreed to as far as 25% of the revenues from the chamber event is going to go to the Windermere legacy. So that's why I see a huge jump in legislative. And also the state lobbyist, they've been doing a fantastic job and hopefully continue to do a fantastic job for next fiscal. Administration, this is where legal fees come into. But overall, we're about $36,000, maybe $37,000 less than what we spent prior fiscal year. And we're still accounting for about 14.5% increase to healthcare. You know, it's always a crapshoot on what it's going to be because they don't give you your numbers pretty much until September or October. Because they don't want to tell you a number like, you know, 12 or 10% and they can't meet that. So it was going to be at 14.5%. I'm sorry, any questions about legislative or administrative? Clerk? Dorothy? All in all, should be over by about $7,874, and that is because we're looking at the programs that she wants to implement to put onto the website for public records, to where you can pretty much queue something up and it'll bring up a document for you, as opposed to her having to do all the legwork, going to encryption, coming back. This program will allow her to just go ahead and type something up and give you the document right away.
It's a good one. And if it's been requested before, they can find it right there and they don't even have to bother us.
Finance. Again, we're looking at about $55,744 more than what we spent last year. Again, the majority of this is for the fire restricted reserve. So what we realize in the tax assessment is going to be more than actually being paid out. So we have to put that into a restricted reserve to offset future costs for fire department. So let's say next year they come back and say, we want $1 million. We're going to have that fire restricted reserve to offset that balance. So we can cover that for probably the next 2 or 3 years. Not saying it's going to happen, but who knows what's going to happen with fire services through COVID. Right now, we still have the contract. They've not asked for any stipulations or any additions into the fire service agreement, but we have that money sitting there in case we need it for future services. Development services, again, we see about $100,000 drop in this. The reason for that is because we allocated monies towards annexations and the comp plan. We did get our responses from the state with no objections. I don't think that we actually included stuff within our comp plan that is going to be more stringent. What you saw with the county with the 2050 plan, they pretty much said no to that because they're being more restrictive since I think it's August of last year, to where the comp plan cannot be adopted. But based on what we've seen from the state, ours will be allowed to be adopted, and we'll have the first hearing in September and the second in October. Again, professional services, that is way cheap. You're not gonna be able to get that type of level of service for anything less than what we pay them. Again, a lot of these monies are recouped through permitting, zoning, inquiries and stuff like that. Public Works, we paid off the debt for the Main Street loans. Again, that was tied to communication service taxes, but we still have to pay for the new town hall facilities. Professional services, that went down, I think. Oh, the study for the waste post. So the professional services, that is, Mike and Laura, Kim and Moore Associates, Frank Chase, John Fitzgibbon, and also includes other professional services that we use, like pest control, cleaning, janitorial, and lawn care and maintenance. What we did include in this is the projects that I listed up prior to this. As far as when you see the $4.8 million, that is going to go towards West Second Avenue, Bessie, Butler, all those projects are included in that student road CIP. So, but for that close to $5 million, again, our budget would be at around the $10 million. We have the 1.95 for the multimodal, but that's coming in about $3.2 million, if not more than that. So again, the projects that we have in Public Works, West Second Avenue completion, Open Water Central Phase completion, Bessie Butler, Windermere Road, Town Hall. I did include $500,000 for town hall bathrooms. That is going to be on your agenda on Tuesday to figure out where you're going to live it. But we have planned for about $500,000 to fund. The old remain, again, we're gonna have to maybe put that on hold until next fiscal year, depending on the board's work. And again, we did add additional public works staffing for this year, and that's being rolled over into next year. I'm sure the guys really appreciate that. Police department. Boy, stop.
I keep it.
As of-
Say it every
I
time.
know, don't say it.
Basically, again, we go through every single line item, when we meet to make sure that, we look at what they've spent this fiscal year and then what they're gonna need for next fiscal year. We did move the code enforcement, officer over to PD. Just makes it easier as far as the working space and, working with, chief, working with, deputy chief, and working with, Mark Wilson. So we see the code enforcement budget, it's not gonna have the officer in there, that's gonna be included in the police department budget. We're gonna be purchasing 2 more new vehicles and then selling the old ones. It does show the increase in the fire department EMS services that we get charged from a COE. There is an increase in both vests, AMOs, uniforms. We are seeing an increase in dispatch fees from the garden. I'm assuming that's going to go up next fiscal year, depending upon how the 365 labs issue goes. That's still in limbo right now, but depending on how that goes, it might be even more for next fiscal year because Winter Garden does have dispatch. And we have to use the same programs that they utilize to make sure it's continuity between us, Oakland, the Cove, and Winter Garden. We are required to purchase new radios. Again, as I said, we're moving from 365 labs to Smart Cop, but we'll see how that goes over our next couple of meetings. And then quickly enough, we're going to be doing our accreditation review. So that's
Every 3 years, you gotta be reaccredited, so October, they'll come in.
Yeah.
Again, with code enforcement, we need code officer to PD. Boards and committees, what we typically do with the boards and committees, whatever they generated in revenue of last year or close to it, we just offset that with their expenditures, because whatever they don't spend goes into the reserves. So let's say Parks and Recreation, they make $100,000 this year, they only spend $80,000, $20,000 goes into their specific reserve account for future projects. And the same would be for each one of those boards and committees. Stormwater, again, we have 1 employee from Public Works that's paid out of stormwater. And then this carry forward to general fund, this helps offset Butler, Bessie, and then West Second Avenue. So that would typically go to the CIP for any specific stormwater improvements that we do. But because we have so many HMGP projects right now, we're gonna have to borrow from stormwater to pay for stormwater projects. Because the general fund is paying for those projects, but it should be coming at least some out of stormwater. So revenues over expenditures. Total expenditures, total revenues, we're looking at 17,254,000. And this is probably a better slide. Oops. For some reason it wasn't reflecting this. Right now, our current reserve is about $1.5 million. And then after this fiscal year, we're probably looking at about 2.1. So our total reserves should be around $2.1 million. I did in the calculations already put contingency reserve in the expenditures of 250. And then we're still gonna be a balance of 385. So just add the 385 to the 250. That's how much we can put towards the multimodal path project. Because we're gonna have to use pretty much all of that to go towards that project. It's again, for industry standard, you're looking at 20-25%. So at 2.1 million out of the 10 million typical budget that we have, we're right there. And due to charter restrictions, again, our debt service and our loan capabilities are very, very much restricted. With that, I'll answer your questions.
Robert, what is our, refresh me on the term of our debt service for the new facilities? Is it 20?
It's 20 years.
20, that's what I thought. Yeah. Council, any additional questions for Robert?
Yeah, sure, Robert. So, I see you have some good guys on your, expenditures. If we were to direct a rollback either to the 3.17 or to the prior year maximum millage rate, which is 3.68, what would fall by the wayside of the budget?
You're talking about close to $600,000. So that would pretty much eat away even some of the portion of the contingency reserve that we have estimated right now. And then also the Ward Trail and the pedestrian bridge project, we would have to go ahead and kill that. There's no way we'd be able to afford that, but for us maintaining a 3.7425 million.
So the choice is the projects that we've got implemented and have gone down the road, or keep the culture.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And it's at no fault of our own too, because we're at the mercy of other jurisdictional approvals. As you can tell, we've been working on these projects for 5-6 years now. So again, 5-6 years ago, we would have been able to afford them at the price that they were, but costs have escalated so much. And again, because of that jump that you see as far as the revenues that we receive from ad valorem, most of that is from the annexation of Sean DeLocke, which you would expect to gain after a year after annexation.
I have a couple minor questions. I actually had somebody ask me just before I got here about the $30,000 line item for the tennis courts, what that is supposed to entail, because they feel that it needs a bigger project. And so they don't want to be wasting money on it if we're going to do a bigger project on it, maybe next year or the year after.
The reserves,
It's at $30,000 for a line item on page 13.
For the lights?
No,
we're doing the lights right now.
Is that for the lighting? We just did the lighting.
No, it's for the lighting. There's nothing that I know of on the tennis courts in the budget.
I know we're looking at doing resurfacing.
Yeah, that's what I was. What page, guys?
Page 15.
I had to pull up the Excel spreadsheet through our budget meetings to get you a direct answer on that. I can get it to you probably tomorrow.
Is that the committee's budget? The parking lot? No.
No, the committee's budget is that was the second part of the question, which, I mean, I already spoke, probably a little about this earlier today, but there's $100,000 to the Parks and Rec committee. So they have their own line item, which is on page 15, so that's separate. The only other question I had is, everyone in town, pretty much that I know, residents wise, has switched from Spectrum to going to the, thank you, AT&T fiber. It's been in too many states, too many companies in my head. Anyway, and so as the town looked into doing that, I know it's just a drop in the bucket in our budget, but everybody I know switched because of saving us in cost. So are you guys utilizing Spectrum, or are you currently using fiber?
Currently, we're on fiber spectrum.
fiber through spectrum,
Yes.
okay. So maybe is it possible to look into just to see if the price is getting better to get a quote from AT&T?
Yeah, no problem.
That's it for me.
Any additional questions for Robert or staff? None, any additional things, you know?
No, we just need council actions as identified in this slide at the very end of the presentation. For the motion to tentatively adopt proposed millage rate of 3.7425 mils per thousand.
All right, council. Absorb part. Council looking for a motion to tentatively approve proposed millage rate of 3.7425 mils per thousand. So moved. Second. Again, voting with that. Councilperson Street. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Council. Next up is item 2. This is a motion to consent to a balanced budget proposal. Revenues $17,254,615.13 with expenditures of $17,254,615.13. Council make for motion to right to.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second, Councilperson Hayes. In voting, Councilperson Hayes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Next up is item 3. This is a motion to set the date, time, and place of our budget hearings. That date and time is September 3rd, 2025, 6 p.m. for the tentative budget hearing at Town Hall 520 Main Street, Windermere, Florida 34786. Don't need to vote on that. Do we need to vote on that?
We need a motion to set that, so I'll just include the second as well.
Councilperson Williams.
Second.
Second, Councilperson Hayes.
I believe that's the.
Sorry, Dave. Lady down there.
That's okay.
Apologies. Begin voting, Councilperson Street. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The, I apologize, Council, I should have done both of them at the same time, but I was. September 15th, 2025, 6 p.m. Final budget hearing, Town Hall 520 Main Street, Windermere, Florida 34786. I'll entertain separate motion for that. Apologies. Motion to approve. Motion approved, Councilperson Williams.
Second.
Yes, Councilperson that. And we'll begin voting, Councilperson Hayes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Apologies, Council. Next up are our motions for assessments. Motion to approve the solid waste assessment at the amount of $435,402.46. Motion approved. Motion approved. Second. Second.
Williams.
Williams. Begin voting, Councilperson Drew. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Next motion is to approve our stormwater fund assessment roll at $350,000. $350,707.88. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Person Hayes and second from Councilperson Bay. Again, voting Councilperson Hayes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Next up is a motion to approve our fire assessment at $972,976.98. Motion to approve. Motion to approve. Motion approved. Councilperson Williams.
Second.
Hayes.
And voting Councilperson Street. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Again, sweet. Finally, our motion for Willows Street Light Assessment at $18,355.68. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Next person, Deb. David.
David, got it.
You know what? I'm gonna be the next person to go to the.
You're perfect too.
Person Dave, second from Councilperson Dad. Beginning voting, Councilperson Drew. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Council, anything additional for the order this evening?
Question that we don't have the budget meeting to be.
No.
Yeah. To be checked.
As long as we got everything accomplished tonight.
Thank you.
Any additional items, council?
The date of
Any staff items? All right, seeing none. I thank you all for attending tonight, and we will adjourn our budget hearing for the town of Windermere at 6:37.
Oh, thank you.